Hello, and welcome to episode 9 of the DeFi Talks podcast. My name is Sharif, and today I'm with Paul. Paul is a crypto expert, I believe. I've learned a lot
I
from
don't know
him
if I would go
throughout.
that far.
All right. You can rebuke that if you want, but I've known you for a long time, and I feel like you have a lot of very good opinions on crypto, and you make the right decisions at the right times. Uh, so today we wanted to talk about cryptography and just do a little bit of an explanation about that. So welcome, Paul. How's it going?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here. I really appreciate it. You're our third guest now, and that's just great. I've been having a lot of fun doing these talks with DeFi Philly people.
Yeah, I always love having chats with DeFi Philly people.
Yeah, I've been really enjoying also making these and just putting up content online. It's a very nice activity. I feel like it's a great hobby to have, and it helps me like learn a lot. So just to get back on topic, I'm very happy to have you. I wanted to ask you, like, could you please do a quick introduction of yourself? Like, how did you get into DeFi? What do you do? Just the basic stuff.
Yeah, sure. So I'm Paul, and my crypto journey, I guess, started in 2012 when I first started about Bitcoin. My friends were mining it at the time, and I think they were making like $50 a week just mining Bitcoin. It was about 10 Bitcoin a week, which is funny to think about now. And they were trying to get me into it because I also had a gaming computer. But it seemed like there's just so much to learn and figure out. And I was worried about somebody possibly having access to my computer. So I never pulled through with it. They ended up selling most of the Bitcoin they mined at the time. So I don't think they got rich off of it. But that was the first time I heard about crypto. Then I have this distinct memory in 2014 when I learned a bit more about what Bitcoin was, and I kept calling it a Ponzi scheme for probably 3 more years. I kept having these arguments with my friends, like, "Oh, there's the Ponzi. The only way it has any value if more people buy it for more money later." And that's probably like a common denominator for many people in crypto, where initially you hear about this thing that it's like these tokens to buy drugs online or whatever, and people are very skeptical and take some time to like appreciate its nuances. For me, it was in 2017 when I learned about Ethereum. And I actually read this kind of really wonky book I found somewhere online about how DeFi and Ethereum will change the world. It was this whole narrative of how we're going to finance our cars through Ethereum. We're going to get our mortgages through Ethereum. We're going to settle these loans and transactions, and it will be like a better credit card, better payment system, and all this kind of la la land, which didn't really happen at the time. I ended up buying some Ethereum and just holding it in Coinbase. And I was waiting for all these awesome financial tools to come out. And I waited and I waited and I waited. And up until like 2020, nothing really happened. And I sort of forgot about it. I mean, I knew I owned Ethereum. It was probably down at the time. So I wasn't really thinking about it. I was really spending my time on it. Like late 2020, I started to see activity on Ethereum again. And probably early 2021 is when I actually got my own wallet, transferred my Ethereum in there, and started to play around in the apps like Aave, Uniswap. And it really was kind of eye-opening. It's like, wow, like we can't finance a car through this thing, but you can do a lot of cool stuff. And everything is kind of enclosed in this closed system. Everything is transparent and fair. And I think that's why I wanted to talk to you about cryptography today, because a lot of people seem to be very intimidated by getting their own wallet, getting off of Coinbase, and understanding what they're actually doing.
I agree with you. A lot of people just put off that responsibility to corporations or just to whoever is providing them with the service. And that's not a good position to be in, because the whole point of this new technology is to actually own your wallet and to have control of your resources versus just giving everything to another bank or another person that gets to control how or what happens to your money, as we've seen lately with like a lot of different companies just stopping withdrawals, and just in general not really respecting the whole idea of decentralized finance. Thanks for telling me about, just thanks for talking about how you got into this. A lot of people tell me they heard about Bitcoin many, many years ago and they never got into it. I'm one of those people too. I had somebody that worked with me. He was mining it and he was just telling me that he was making a couple hundred a month, and I think this was in 2016 or 2017. I couldn't understand it. It was too complicated. I didn't have the like tools to make it happen. So I never owned my own wallet until 2020. I think that was the first time I ever really interacted with the system, more than just looking at it.
Same for me,
Yeah,
right? I mean, it took me 8 years to go from first hearing about Bitcoin and being encouraged to mine Bitcoin to actually getting my own private key.
yeah, it's a long journey, and I think that that's because of the lack of care for user experience. It just the complexity of it all. It just sounds complicated, and it makes people not confident enough to go out on their own, because if they lose, they're losing money,
Yeah,
and yeah,
it
it's not a
certainly
good
is
thing.
responsibility. But as we've seen recently, especially with Celsius and some of the other custodial solutions not doing so well during these crashes, you really, the whole point of this really is to take control of your own money. If you're just going to use a custodial for everything, you might as well stick with the bank, have your money federally insured, and like I just don't see the point in a way.
I don't see the point either. I think that we should be distinct enough from the traditional banking system if we're going to be like advertising that we are like different from them. There was a specific question I wanted to ask you, since you've been hearing about this for a very long time, and even though you haven't interacted, you've still known about it for like 8 years now. How what's the difference between like the landscape as it is now versus when you first heard about it and when you first got introduced into these products and services?
So I think I'm going to just compare kind of 2020 when I first started to actually interact with the blockchain with now. Um, and I would say that the systems in general are way more refined. In 2020, it was definitely way more of a wild, wild west. There was all these airdrops coming. Um, a lot of people were just figuring it out as they went. Prices were mostly moving up a lot. There was a lot of new systems being built. There was a lot of opportunity, and it's not to say there's no opportunity now, but I think everything is just a bit more refined. There's a lot more bots around. I think an individual little investor trying to provide liquidity in specific places in DeFi and model it on their own is starting to get kind of outmatched by bigger players, by bots, by whales. It's not that easy anymore.
Have you
Um,
have you heard of like so basically this is a strategy I've heard of a while ago. People will like set listeners on the Twitter API or just any API on a text specific place, and they'll wait for people to talk about Web3, and they'll wait for them to talk about DeFi, or like to mention that they're doing a drop at some point, and so they like create fake accounts and start like interacting with the service just so that they can get in their like registry and their databases, so that when these drops do happen, they get the airdrops. I think they're called Sybil attacks. um
yeah,
and
definitely. I mean, I think
yeah,
the era of airdrops is a little dead because if people are anticipating an airdrop, it's just going to go to, like you said, people kind of abusing the system, right?
yeah. There's just so much of that. I saw there's on GitHub like these major Web3 like companies there. They have like a GitHub repository just explaining all the different different ways people will try to farm these airdrops and try to like take advantage of the system. So I think you're right. It's a little bit late for people to go and just ride like you said, not just the liquidity, the airdrops. Like they could, it's too late for that. There's too many people that are working at these companies that know these tricks, and we're moving into a different phase, I think, with crypto in general.
I think you just need to be there and participating, and just try to stay organic. Trying to game the system right now is very difficult because it's more refined and more people know what they're doing. More people are using bots. Yeah.
So I wanted to also talk about something. I saw that you have a great blog. I really like reading your blog posts. You have this ability to just make me feel like I'm inside of the story, and I don't get that much with reading because I don't focus. And I also saw that you had a YouTube channel where you went over a couple of DeFi topics in the past. What why did you start making content about this stuff?
Really, the reason I started to make content was a lot of different people were asking me the same questions. And rather than trying to go into a 30-minute rant about how a wallet works or like what happened with Luna or whatever piece of content we're referring to, I just wanted to like make a video, write a blog post, and if somebody was to ask me, it was like, "Hey, I wrote this thing, check it out." That kind of explains my view on it. It's much easier to take some time and put your thoughts into an organized blog post or video rather than each time trying to explain it to a new person.
I agree with you. I think there's a lot of value in content. You can learn a lot on the internet, and just allowing people to learn about this stuff it's really nice because it's complicated, and I see a lot of people that come to meetups. A lot of the times they feel like they're out of place because there's a lot of technical jargon that they don't understand. So having those resources and like providing them to people so that they can learn about it on their own time, I think is a really good idea. Do you still like push that stuff? Are you trying to succeed in that in that area?
I feel like if people ask me about something enough, then I feel motivated to create content. Also, if I have something meaningful to say about something, that I might be inspired to create some content. If I'm just kind of online and I see a lot of good resources for something, I don't really feel the need to recreate it or like put it in my own words. So yeah, that's kind of where I am. I remember when I first made that first YouTube video, I was kind of doing some research, and a lot of the YouTube videos at the time were not accurate. Like there's always something wrong. I would watch it, I'm like, oh, I can't send this to my friends because of this thing. This is like way off. And I just couldn't find one that I thought I could get behind. So I figured I'll just make my own. Now I think I've fallen behind a bit. I think there's probably better resources than I could create right now. So I'm not trying to jump the gun and do it. Unless there's something like Luna that was very personal to me. And I actually disagreed with a lot of things people were saying online on YouTube and whatever. Everybody wanted to just jump on it and make a really quick judgment call. Like, I thought it was more complicated than that. And that's why I wrote a blog post about it.
Do you want to just like quickly mention the name of your blog post on YouTube just in case anybody wants to check those out?
Yeah, I mean, we can include the links in the episode.
All right, we'll do that. Yeah, I'll put the links in the episode. For me personally, I've went on YouTube. I learned how to code mostly on YouTube and online resources. And despite finding like multiple videos of people with like high subscriber counts, a lot of likes, and even the videos are very good quality, sometimes I don't get it until somebody with only like 1,000 views sitting in a dark room like explains it, because it's just about you can learn different things from different people, and everybody does something just a little bit different. So I think more content online, whatever it is good. I hope that you continue to make stuff, and I really do like that blog. I think you're a good writer. But from here, I wanted to jump into cryptography because I think this is what you were really interested in talking about today. What is cryptography? How does it work, and why is it important?
Oh man, that's a that's a loaded question. I mean, I'm probably not really in a position to explain cryptography, but I could get into cryptography in context of crypto and as I understand it. Um, right? To me, it really all starts with kind of the private public key pair, which is a new paradigm in crypto. What we're used to in Web2 and traditional banking and whatever is you have a username and a password, right? And you can always change your password if you're the owner of the account. You can recover your password if you have access to the email associated with the account, right? That's what people are used to. Like if you just bought some Bitcoin on Coinbase, you can recover your Coinbase account even if you lose your password, right?
Mm-hmm.
So kind of like the cryptography behind crypto, behind Bitcoin and behind Ethereum is a little bit different. And people need to think about it differently. And they're often intimidated by that. So essentially, as I understand it, right, I mean, you have a secret recovery phrase, which is a whole bunch of words. Like it's 2048 words, and it's some kind of combination of those. And when you run it through a certain hashing algorithm, right, and probably don't need to get into exactly how that works and how those bits are manipulated to like create a private key, but it creates a 256 character private key. That private key controls a specific account. Um, and so essentially the private key is your password. And the big difference here is that you cannot change your password. Like that password is going to forever be associated with one blockchain address. The blockchain address you can give to someone. It's kind of like your username or kind of like a public facing address. You can give it to them. They can see your balances. They could see everything you've ever done on Ethereum, for example. You know, if you're using a different blockchain, maybe it's different. Like I think Monero is kind of private, right? But like on Ethereum, they could see everything you've done, but they cannot control anything. They cannot make a transaction for you. The only way to make a transaction is to have that 256 character private key. And you know that's obviously kind of an issue, right? Who wants to have a 256 character password like every time you do a transaction? That's not really practical. And so uh, the recovery phrase kind of makes it easier to recover your private keys, and that's kind of like the basic cryptography behind what I wanted to talk about today. And it feels like people are often confused about all this stuff or intimidated by it. Um, I've I've just in the last 2 years, I've been using it so much that it became normal for me. But I have to admit, the first time I set up my wallet, like I was so confused. Like somebody just, my good friend walked me through the steps, told me, oh, you know, do this, you write down these words, don't share these words, make sure you don't put them on your phone, blah, blah, blah. He gave me like certain advice and it was good. But at the end of the day, like I moved Ethereum into this wallet. I'm like, I had really no idea what I actually have done, right? It took me a while of using this thing and to read about it a bit to get comfortable with it. And that's kind of where I'm coming from.
I see. I started. I think I have a basic understanding of like how like cryptography works, and there's three different kinds. I just want to explain because I was reading about this morning to prepare, so I want to get my thoughts out, and maybe I'm wrong. So if I am, just let us know, people. But there is a one-way cryptography like system where you have one key, and that is the encryption and the decryption key. And then you have what we do in crypto, which is where you have a public key and a private key, and one of them verifies, and one of them is just there to be in the transactions. And then you have the third one, which is the hashing functions that take characters and compress them down to a specific size, and this is used to authenticate and just verify the state of the blockchain. And it's not easy at all, even though, like you say, it's hard for people to get. But traditionally, everything is kind of abstracted away from you in traditional banks. You just log in, you set, like if you want to make a transfer, you just put the name in, and that's it. You don't have to think about networks or like just the specific numbers or the names. It's all been worked on for 20, 25 years. So people are accustomed to this simplicity, and it will take them time to figure out all the little details on how to use a service like this by yourself. I had a lot of trouble with MetaMask. I lost like thousands of dollars just sending my money to like wrong networks or like missing a single character or whatever, and it's pretty brutal. So I understand why people are hesitant to interact. Do you think that there's a way to make this simpler, or that it is becoming simpler, or is this a hard problem?
Look, I mean, there's a trade-off here, right? Crypto's not for everybody. If someone is losing stuff all the time, they're bad at security, I don't know, maybe they don't have a stable home, right? Like maybe it's not for them. That's just the harsh truth of it. If you cannot like control your private key in a safe way, then there is a reason why there are banks. There is a reason why there's custodial solutions. However, if you are willing to get over this hurdle and control your own private keys, take that risk, make some mistakes along the way, there's a big payoff for that. And it will get better, right? I mean, we've been talking about it for a long time. Everyone in crypto has been talking about it. It will get better. It is getting better. I mean, MetaMask is clunky. It works. A lot of people have gotten used to it. But then the first time I used like the Solana Phantom wallet, honestly, the user experience is much better. Like that's a way better designed wallet. I would say even like Luna's Terra Station, we all know how that ended, but that was a very, very neat wallet too. So there is technology out there that's getting better, and I have no doubt it will continue to get better. But there is a hurdle that will not disappear, right? You will have to be responsible for your private keys. And that's why I think talking about this stuff is important.
I think talking about this stuff is important too, because the trade-off is not worth it. The simplicity of the traditional financial system, it ties you in. It just ties you in, and you can't like really do anything on your own. You always need somebody to like verify your stuff for you, or it's not easy to learn how to use all these different products, but it's also kind of like riding a bike, where as soon as you learn a little bit, the next time just gets easier and easier and easier.
It
And
does.
any new technology you try to learn kind of clicks way quicker because you understand the underlying basic concepts behind all this stuff. So it's worth it if you do take the time to learn about this stuff. Could we try to like talk about some examples of cryptography being used, or like cryptocurrency, like what makes this better? Where is it being used in the real world?
I mean, so the issue is, right, that it hasn't been adopted widely enough to have like this major impact on banking, on these like everyday applications like paying for food at the supermarket or renting a car, right? To me, the systems are there. The backbone is there. There's lots of talented people working on it. But we haven't quite made it to a place where crypto is like really changing lives and like you can't live without it, That being said, I mean, cryptography is used in everything, right? I mean, every single Chase transaction is encrypted. They just do it for you and they don't bother you with any of it. But then you have to trust them quite a bit, and they have a lot of control over what they're doing. I mean, cryptography goes back like thousands of years, right? And there's always some kind of a way to obscure information. Like World War II was all about encrypting messages to not get intercepted. So this isn't like some new technology that like, is mind blowing. It's something that now is available to the individual, and I think that's the big difference.
I think the first time I ever like looked at an encryption algorithm was the Caesar cipher, and it was made by Julius Caesar. So this is really old, and this is something that has been used for like thousands of years. It's just now we didn't have to deal with it for like 50, 60 years. The general public didn't have to deal with a lot of this stuff. Like I said, it was all abstracted for us, especially in the United States, I believe. Because you said that there isn't really that much adoption. But if you go to Africa, the majority of people know how crypto works at this point because they don't have services like PayPal or Cash App or Venmo. They need to rely on these decentralized services, or they won't be able to send money to people and like interact with the financial system at all. I think we have a problem with getting adoption here in the United States, and I'm not sure what the reason for that is.
It's because we have such a robust banking system that we have Venmo, we have PayPal, we have banks, we have ATMs everywhere. We have, I mean, when I lived in Brooklyn, there was a Chase across the street from a Chase 2 blocks away from a Chase. So it's really easy for us to have access to this stuff, right? And like they do all this encryption for us. They keep our money safe for us by running these systems. Crypto allows an individual to do it for themselves. And again, it's not for everyone. Like I totally understand that.
Yeah, I think it's just for people. It's for people that need it. And again, this is who am I to say this? But I don't think that like the way we should be using this technology is to like invest in it and hope that it goes up 20x or 100x. It's supposed to be used as a way to transfer value or to store value, depending on what currency you're looking at. And I think we're missing the point a lot of the times. A lot of people have interacted with crypto in the Coinbase app or like on Binance or one of the exchanges, but not a lot of people have actually interacted with the self-owned wallets, which is a big problem because we've seen this happen like a dozen times in the last year. People try to take out their money, whether they're up or down. They try to take out their money and they can't, or they try to send money or transactions get reversed. So I think that it's in our interests if we all learn just a little bit of how this works so that we could make new stuff and use the stuff that's being made. Because like you said, there's a lot of talent in this field. And I feel like a lot of products are just being put out there without anybody using them because of the complexity and because of the lack of like people willing to learn. How does cryptography right now, how does it tie into privacy?
Well, so I'm not like a big privacy maxi personally. I actually believe in transparency, and I am really, really excited about a transparent system like Ethereum. So I'm maybe not the right person to ask, but one aspect of this that I do resonate with is once you have your Ethereum in your Ethereum wallet, and let's say you've memorized your recovery key and your private key is nowhere to be, like it's not saved on your computer, like literally the only place your money is in your own brain, right? To me, that's something amazing. Like no government could take it, no amount of power. Even if every single person on this planet wanted to take your Ethereum from you, they couldn't, because unless you give them the secret recovery phrase you memorized, it's just literally impossible to take it from you. And that's power to the people. Like, that's awesome to me.
I've seen a lot of different wallets that are built around the idea of privacy. One of them, I forgot what it's called. I forgot exactly, like it had a name, but what it does is like it creates a new account every time you make a transaction, so that even though it's on the Ethereum network, you can't really trace it because of the way it like behaves. So every time you want to like send somebody money, instead of doing it from the address that you would usually do it from, the wallet would open a new address for you and send it from there. There's also
there's like tools such as Tornado Cash, right, where you can kind of really obscure where the ETH is coming from or where is it going to. So it's hard to connect the dots between the accounts, because if you just, I've seen this before. People, I think they're being really cute where they send ETH from one address to another and, then send it to Coinbase. It's just like they remove it by one account. But like, and they think they're obscuring it for taxes, or I don't know what they think they're doing. But in reality, like, it's very easy to track that back to the original address. Like this, it's transparent, right? Like, so
As
it's
long as there's that continuity between like each transaction, there's no way to like hide what you're doing. I
exactly.
think it's really important to explain to people how the different networks how they work, because some people would buy Bitcoin thinking that they're buying this privacy centric coin, when actually it's all public. So they're committing crimes using this coin that they thought is private. And some people would buy Ethereum thinking the same thing, but then there's services like Monero where you could send, it kind of has like a tornado cash built into it from the start. So just read, people like, how would we get that information out there in a like digestible way? Because people need to like read, oh, this one is used for privacy, this one is used for art and smart contracts. I think that that's missing for a lot of people.
enough. I don't know a lot about privacy blockchains because I've never had the need to use them. But from what I understand, like Monero is meant to be a private blockchain. I think there's some issues with that, in that, if the government realizes something is specifically designed to be private like that, if they spin up enough nodes, they will kind of be able to piece the transactions back together. And I have a sense that that's probably what happens if like the CIA has the whatever organization out there, right, that's tracking this stuff. If they think they could tie something to terrorism, they're going to go after this pretty hard, and it's hard to truly continue to obscure unless like there's a lot of users behind this thing. And
I
one thing I
agree
wanted
with
to
you. Yeah.
add is also that like Ethereum itself is private, right? You can see it unless you know whose private key that is. All you see is a bunch of gibberish, a bunch of numbers and letters interacting with other numbers and letters. There's no names attached. There's no social security numbers attached to you on the blockchain. It's just when you're trying to withdraw the money into your traditional banking account, that's where you have to do KYC. You have to kind of reveal who you are to get the money, right? But
Mhm.
as we adopt this technology more, then that will no longer be the case. Like if you can pay for all of your expenses in crypto on the blockchain, then like only the people you transact with could potentially know who you are. For everyone else, for all intents and purposes, it will be private.
I think that if we want to actually have mass adoption, then we need to get to the point, get to a point where we have the same kind of ability with as we do with cash, because cash allows you to transact privately on some level, and it allows you to transact like publicly if you'd like to. So we need that. I think that privacy is very important. I'm personally a big fan of transparency as well, because I think that any tool that's built around the idea of privacy is just going to get cracked in like 10, 20, 30 years, maybe less. At some point, everything that was private is going to like whatever algorithm, whatever like scheme they had to conceal things is just going to get figured out, and they're going to be able to find out everything, like you said. So it's good to be transparent, and in this world, it rewards and promotes transparency more and more. There's cameras everywhere. There's like all these tools are tracking you on some level or another. So I think that like the whole idea of just being private online, it's not possible anymore, and it's kind of an illusion. But I would hope that at some point we could transact privately online, because I think that that's an important part of like living life. I would go into all the scenarios where that is possible, but like let's say in places that have war, somebody's trying to donate to somebody. They wouldn't be able to send money through Western Union or whatever, because there's a war there. Like their money's just going to get stolen from them. Um, so privacy, like I said, I think it's still important. I would recommend people try to be as transparent as possible and to know the difference between all the tools. But yeah, that's where that's at.
Say that
How do you?
individual privacy is important, and maybe not to me, but I understand why it's important to other people, and I totally respect that. But I think governments politicians, large systems like that have no business being private. And that's just my opinion. Like, obviously, this debate probably goes back hundreds of years. But I think if every single political donation was on the blockchain and you could see exactly who's donating how much and when and what's that's correlated to, that'll do a lot of good for society.
I am in Poland right now, and I was walking down Warsaw recently. There was a poster. There's an app that lets you vote online. So instead of having to go to the, what are those called? They're not, they're like the city level stuff. Instead of having to go to the place, you can just vote online, and that promotes transparency because then those records are being stored somewhere. And in the United States, I know that there's a couple of companies pushing to get crypto involved into the voting process, and get crypto involved into all these different government processes, because one, it'll speed up a lot of things. And two, like you said, it will allow us to see everything that's going on. I don't like, I pay my taxes every year, and I don't know where the money is really going because just like they'll tell you some details, but at some level, you're going to hit those projects that are classified in. Like the majority of our money goes to classified projects that we don't know when we don't have like basic services like healthcare or street cleaning or whatever. So I think at some point we will have to introduce this into the government if we want things to move along.
Yeah, I mean, crypto is a great tool for human coordination, and that's kind of what government is supposed to be. So I think there's just a natural union there.
So on that note, how do you think that crypto revolutionizes like finance? What does it change?
Yeah, that's a great question. To me, what it changes is it really removes the power from the banks, and it really reduces overhead, because if we can just have computer code that is really well polished, really well like made and cannot be hacked, right? Or virtually cannot be hacked. And we're using that to transact. We're using that to lend and borrow. We're using that to trade, invest, start up, raise capital, and all these other things that we already can. Then we are just cutting out like tens of thousands of these useless jobs for bankers who essentially facilitate these things in a very inefficient way. Like, to me, crypto is so much more efficient. It's crypto by definition, like smart contracts by definitions are fair because everybody could go through the smart contract, read it, learn enough about it to understand it, have somebody else review it for them, read somebody else's opinion on it. And it's just like, you can't change the rules of a smart contract as you go. And right now, the banks and the Fed kind of can. They just kind of agree, backdoor deals, whatever. And they're always going to be winning. It's just like a retail investor or a startup or whoever, they're always at the mercy of the banks and the Fed. And I don't like that. I think DeFi as a whole can really make this all permissionless and make it so that everyone's on even ground, right? And what it's going to mean also is when there's massive panic in the market, you know, the automated market makers in crypto, so like Uniswap, whatever the money's sitting, Aave, whatever liquidations need to happen, they will happen, and the price will crash from 4,000 to 1,000, because that's what the market sentiment is right now. And there's no one to absorb that. There's nobody to hold their hand. There's nobody to say, oh, we're actually going to keep the money in the markets and pump them up a little bit here and there and manipulate things so that the market doesn't crash too much so people don't panic more. No, that's not going to happen. It's actually real organic money flow. And if crypto needs to crash 10x, then it just, well, that's what the market wants. And like, who are we to sit here and manipulate it? Like, to me, it's become this sick game, right? Where on one hand, it's nice, right? Because people put their retirement money, people put their life insurance money into the market. And if it crashes 10x, like, they'll be devastated, right? We've seen that in like the 1930s or 1920s or whatever. There's been big market crashes. People get devastated. They like commit suicide, all this horrible stuff. And it also does, like, the every day takes a beating from that. And the banks have kind of evolved to protect us from that. The SEC has all these rules to protect us from that. And on one hand, it's kind of neat. Like it's good that even when the market sentiment completely turns on its head and we start dumping, it only goes down like 5-8%, right? Which sucks, but it's not going to ruin anyone. In crypto, we don't have those like safeguards. The market does what the market actually is meant to do. And to me, that's healthier. To me, like these under collateralized loans, like credit cards and all this other stuff, like, I mean, I think it causes more harm than good. I think people should become more financially literate. I think personal finance should be taught in schools from a young age. People should know how banking works, how credit cards work, how credit work. And that's kind of like what crypto taught me. Like I didn't really know how liquidity works, how like why companies need to come to banks to take them public, right? What an IPO is, how all those mechanisms really work. I didn't really understand it because it's so convoluted and like manipulated that when I started looking at crypto and I saw new tokens drop and how the money acts and where it flows, and I thought it was fascinating. And to me, that's just much healthier than our traditional system.
I agree with you. I think they'll both have to coexist with each other because, like you said, not everybody, like crypto isn't for everybody. Some people need stability and some people need predictable patterns and some people need that cover. And I think that cover probably helps a lot of us just survive and get through our lives because we have banks closing down all the times, but there are organizations that are put there that are just single-handedly supposed to fix these problems before anybody else even gets like the news about this bank closing down or the branches changing. So it's good to have that traditional system. It's good to have that like quote unquote fair playing ground. The problem with it is that it does restrict you and it doesn't allow you to do a lot of things that are important. For example, there's all those like hedging, betting. I don't know, like I don't know the words. I'm not very like literate in the stock market, I guess. But I've seen that you're allowed to invest in something, pull your money out whenever you want. There's no like arbitrary limit set by the bank where you can only buy something once a day or sell something once a day. And I think that that's good for a lot of people, like people that like high risk, high reward financial games, and that's fine. It should exist with us. Another thing that's great about crypto is the fact that it's a home for people that don't have anywhere else to go. Our financial system is not very nice to anybody it deems problematic. It doesn't matter whether this is people in Russia right now getting their Visa cards canceled, or whether it's people that work in high risk businesses like cannabis or sex work. There's a lot of like limitations set. People lose their accounts all the time. They get closed down. They get their transactions revoked, or they get charged like arbitrary numbers again. Have you ever had like your account go below zero and then they charge you for it going below zero, even though you never gave them permission to spend money like that?
Right.
There's just, yeah, and like charges on the ATM fees. Like if you're going to take out money from the ATM, and that's not the ATM of this specific business, they charge you like $3 or $4, and then the ATM charges you $3 or $4, and you notice all these like sick games that the system's playing that don't really
Yeah,
have
man.
to exist.
As a business owner, like the paying 3% for all the credit card processing really hurts. Like, and we're kind of like a high margin business, but I can't imagine like a supermarket. Like if everybody just started paying cash or in crypto with no 3%, like every single supermarket would be so much better off. Like it's such a huge drain on their bottom line.
Well, we have a big problem right now with scaling. So one of the reasons, so we talked about some of the reasons that crypto hasn't had wide adoption in the United States. But another reason that's been talked about a lot, and I think that there's this new tech called ZK rollups that tries to help solve this a little bit. But we have a problem with scale. Like these networks, they can't handle millions of transactions every second, or at least that's what I've been led to believe. Do you think that that's true?
Ethereum is not designed for you to pay for your groceries. We need some kind of a scaling solution for that. And to be honest, there's a lot of them. I mean, there's L2s where the transactions are significantly lower. There's side chains like Avalanche or Matic where the transactions are, under $1, which is pretty sensible. Even Solana could be considered kind of like a scaling solution, even though that's really not what it is. But the transactions are like quarter of a penny there. So it's not really a problem to build a blockchain that is geared towards transactions like Visa and MasterCard. It's just that enough people need to want it. And it feels like people want to speculate on crypto, like you said earlier. They want to see a doubling. They want to double their money on their investments. They want to do all this crazy stuff, but a lot of them just don't want to use it. And honestly, we came full circle. Like, that's why we should be talking about cryptography. So we should be talking about private keys.
I
Because
think then
people need to get in there.
so I think that it's really important then. So we talked a little bit, we had a conversation about all the, like high level stuff. Let's try to get a little bit into the details with the cryptography and how it applies to all of this. Like, for example, we have all those words. We have the public key and the private key that we talked about. We have the mnemonic phrases, the mnemonic phase, I think. What is that right?
Yeah, mnemonic phase or recovery key, recovery phrase. It's the same thing. Yeah.
I think even before we talk about any of that, let's take a step back. What is the blockchain?
Oh man, like that's a hard question that I'm probably not really equipped to like answer as well as just kind of Googling that, because it's a blockchain, I guess, at its core is just a big decentralized ledger system, right? Where transactions are stored. And anyone could kind of go back to the beginning of all these transactions and track where the money is and what the current balances are. And Ethereum is like this big bloated database at this point. But still, every single transaction that ever occurred on Ethereum is still there, right? So if you run a full node, you're going to download 300 gigabytes of data. It will have every single transaction we ever made. And you cannot change anything in the database. You can just add additional blocks with new transactions and update the balances. So that's kind of my 30-second explanation of blockchain, but that's probably not great.
Well, I was taking a quick crash course on blockchain and the way it was explained. So if we think about it, how does cryptography fit into this? Is each block in the blockchain contains a certain amount of data that we want to represent, like whether that's a transaction or whether it's a message. It just contains, or a smart contract. It contains that data, and then it contains a pointer to the next block in the system. So let's say each minute a couple of blocks get made, and that's a couple of transactions happening. So we were able to maintain this record because all of the blocks are connected together. So if we change one block somewhere, another person's version of the blockchain is going to be just a little bit different, making it obvious that, okay, this was tampered with. Since, like you said, a lot of people, they do download 300 gigabytes of transactions, and they are checking to see if there's anything that's been messed with.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that was my explanation of the blockchain. And from here on, I mean, I think we should start closing this down. Is there anything that you wanted to mention besides all the stuff about cryptography?
Look, I mean, if we're going to talk about cryptography, and that was the goal, even though we really got off topic and we talked a lot about banks and DeFi, and which is fine. Maybe we should talk about hardware wallets, because actually the other day at the meetup, we had this short conversation about them. And again, people who don't really have the private keys are pretty confused about this stuff. And it is confusing. If you get a hardware wallet, does your crypto live on the hardware wallet, right? And I've heard this question a lot of times now. And And like some people would think, oh, I have this ledger. It's my crypto is my USB stick, but like it's not, right? It lives on the blockchain, like you explained. Like your account balance is within that 300 gigabytes that all the nodes are checking against each other. That's where your balance lives. Your hardware wallet is just a way to protect your private key. So rather than having your private keys saved in your browser in MetaMask or like you typing it in somehow, which nobody does, but like hypothetically they could, you have it on a little device that kind of creates a signature for you and only sends that signature online, which makes it a lot more secure. So if you're first getting into crypto and getting your first private key pair and want to get your money off of Coinbase, I do recommend that like just do it right the first time around. Get that hardware wallet, start getting used to using it. Get the basic understanding of how it protects you. And it will really go a long way. I mean, there's so many hacks that my friends have experienced or like mistakes they've made that could have been avoided if they were just using a ledger.
Yeah, so, I've heard a lot about like all the security features ledgers have. One of them is that, for example, you can make a fake account in case anybody ever like tries to threaten you to unlock the ledger to get your money out of it. And so like it makes you a fake account and you can just put a little bit of crypto in there in case that happens. And the whole thing that you said about it being like air gapped off the internet, off your devices. The modern internet is just full of bugs. It's full of malicious code. And people are always trying to steal information from your cookies, from your cache. So it's very important to you have to focus on separation of concerns. Like, okay, you have your laptop is for work, your ledger is for your transactions. Keep that stuff separate, because if it starts getting mixed together, first, if anything does happen, you wouldn't know where it came from because you have all this stuff going on this device. And second, you just have like a wider attack area. Like it's a wider area where people could just poke into your device and try to steal information like that. MetaMask saves they save a text file on your laptop with some of that information that might help you get into the account. So and it does that automatically. So like you are vulnerable until you have something that is disconnected from the internet. But yeah, thank you, Paul. Thank you so much for being on this, and thanks for like helping us understand this a little bit. Is there anything that you want to shout out?
DeFi Philly, July 8th.
All right. Hopefully we get this posted by then. It's been taking a while.
I hope so.
All right,
it's only,
guys.
like 16 days away?
Yeah, it is only 16. I'll be there in like 2 weeks, so I'm really looking forward to this event. I think it's going to be very nice.
Yeah, excited to see you again.
Yeah, I'm excited to see you guys again too. Did you hear whether or not they are close to selling out all the tickets?
I think we're getting there. Yeah.
Well, you
I don't
heard
think
it,
they're
folks.
sold out, but I think it's getting close.
Well, we haven't sold out the tickets, so I will leave the discount code in the description. For those of you that are just listening, it's DeFi Friends. And thank you for dropping by. I hope you guys learned something today. This has been DeFi Talks. Please like and share this. And we'll see you in the next one. Bye.
Awesome. Thanks for having me, man. And I hope to do it again with you.